Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guests. They are the founder of Red Door Life, no other than Mr. Alex and Miss Bernadine. Welcome to Book 101, both of you. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am a licensed psychotherapist and have been in practice for over 25 years. I was licensed in 1998. So that means I'm old, but I'm wise at the same time.
Old and wise.
I
Good.
I'm I'm pretty specialized in working with addiction and trauma. I come from a background of being in recovery myself and come from a family that is also really has a lot of addiction in it. So I'm sober 32 years and no,
Longer, much longer.
I know
Much longer.
I always get my sober.
Much
It,
I'm the one
longer.
that keeps track.
he keeps track of
Good. Good, good,
so
good.
30. Okay. Anyway, Um, that said, I have addiction in my family history. I believe it's multi generational. Um, Fortunately, we have not passed that along with our own daughter. So I work again, as I said, with trauma and addiction, but I've also found my way into also utilizing ketamine as part of the healing process. Um, I'm a psychedelic trained therapist in a model called PSIP, which is psychedelic somatic interactional psychotherapy. But I'm also trained in EMDR, attachment focused therapy, internal family systems. So all the letters of the alphabet. Um, and I would probably say that we at the Red Door work with some of the most complex, high acuity clients with many forms of trauma. And I believe, very much like Gabor Mate, that trauma and addiction are married. Um, a dysregulated nervous system also creates the need to self soothe. So it really makes people very prone to end up being addicted to drugs or alcohol. So that's a lot that I just threw out there all at once.
Mr. Alex?
Yes, well, I'm Alex, and I want to start with saying that I actually met Bernie in 1984, and she used to come over to my house on Sunset and San Vicente up by the Sunset Strip, and she'd walk into like one room of the house during a party that we were throwing, and she'd take over that room. And while she was in there, I heard a whisper that she might be doing drugs in there. And I fell in love with her,
Yes, that's
and
the
we've
spark.
been together. Yeah, we've been
Sober.
together every year since. So it's been a long journey together. And we both got clean. She got clean in 1987 on December 10th. So she's
Thank you.
actually
That was awful.
right.
Good memory.
And and I actually got sober originally in 1988, and so I went into technology. So I was a tech entrepreneur after I got clean, and she went in. You heard her background. She went into psychotherapy and treatment. But then, about 2004, 2005, I wanted to do something much more socially conscious, something that's closer to my heart. And since I'd been in recovery for a long time by then, I wanted to actually put my efforts toward helping Bernie build, a better version of treatment. And as a social entrepreneur, I looked at, what was going on well in treatment, what was going poorly. And with Bernie's influence and support and knowledge, I think we've been innovating in this space ever since.
Innovating indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. What core principles guide your treatment philosophy when addressing the complex interplay of trauma, anxiety, depression, and substance use disorders?
Well, I think it all is about attachment because as humans, we're all wired for connection. And that's where the healing happens is through connection. And if you look at mental health and people that struggle with addiction, for example, the thing that fuels it is the isolation and being alone. Because I think our society and the world, and even with like the internet and all these technologies, it really still puts people very much alone in front of a screen often. And so the actual basis of human connection and healing through co regulation is really, in my belief, as being the core foundational way to heal anxiety, trauma, addiction, fill in the blank. It starts with attachment and having a good, healthy attachment.
Healthy attachment. Indeed, Mr. Alex.
Well, I think that, for most people that I see who end up in substance abuse disorders versus just like recreational use or just having fun and going out and partying, I think that what's happened in the people like me or Bernie who end up, actually crossing the line and becoming addicts is that, you know, the the feelings of being dysregulated, whatever the origins, trauma, feelings of hopelessness, loss, grief. Sometimes we just don't feel like everybody else, like we feel different or not a part of. And when we start to take drugs or alcohol, the next thing that happens is it's kind of works for us. Like it feels great. And we say, well, I want to feel like this more and I want to feel like this all the time. And, you can almost control your states. Like you can sort of try to sort of keep a certain, baseline going all the time, like sort of happy or, whatever experience by control your emotions through drugs until they actually turn on you. And then no longer are they the thing that actually makes you feel better. They start to actually work against your life, your lifestyle, your relationships, your work. And once that starts to happen, then you're sort of, in more discomfort. It's kind of like, when everybody's like going with the river downstream, you're swimming upstream and it gets harder and harder to keep the same lifestyle. And actually, at times, like, I see this with a lot of people that we work with and myself, they actually stop working. And you think, well, these powerful drugs, well, how could they stop working? But if you do enough of them, it doesn't feel like you're getting high anymore. And, that's one of the things that makes it really hard for us as addicts to keep going on.
Very well said, both of you. Beautifully articulated. Thank you so much for empowering us. When someone presents with multiple issues like active addiction and, and severe PTSD, how do you prioritize which condition to address first and why?
Well, I can tell you that if somebody has multiple issues concurrently at the same time, and if addiction is one of the main ones, that's the first thing that has to be arrested. It's like you have to stop the addiction before you can heal, whether it's underlying trauma, anxiety, panic attacks, whatever is under it. You can't even really get to it until the addiction is arrested and stopped. So that's always the first. So that's what I would do, which is why you have to get in and really work on whether it's AA or whether it's, therapy or deeper work, but whatever you need to do in order to get the addiction to be stopped.
Because I think that, one of the things that, especially with PTSD or some of these other conditions, the actual substance that they're addicted to is really their medicine,
It's the solution.
right? And so,
Solution.
part of that is that they don't actually really need as much work on the PTSD as long as they have this powerful substance, that's sort of masking, the feelings of PTSD, the trauma that's underneath it.
It's a numbing agent, right? It just like, so when you take that away, you actually see a very like acute situation often, and really distressing, because when people are medicated, they're able to navigate a lot easier than when they're not. So I think that Gabor Mate addresses a lot of that in the realm of Hungry Ghosts, and also in the Myth of Normal, talks about, addiction, not, to ask why the addiction, you ask why the pain.
How do you help clients break the cycle where anxiety or trauma triggers lead to substance use or depressive withdrawal as avoidance strategies?
Well, I think that's, a very good question because it's complicated to do that, right? That,
Yes.
you're trying to give the person enough support, to be able to feel comfortable enough in their body to be able to tolerate, moving from using substances as the coping mechanism to kind of being raw and vulnerable and exposed to all of those powerful feelings, many of them really uncomfortable. And so it takes a lot of support, um, from a lot of different dimensions, and so what we try to do is wrap people around in like a warm blanket of support, love. um, what that looks like is good food. If people want to exercise, hikes, meditation, yoga, breath work, sound baths, other things that basically they can experience that might sort of help with their senses so that they actually feel kind of safer and more connected to their bodies and in a comforting way.
And so all of that to say, he's talking, it comes back to attachment and feeling part of community and connection, because it's through connection that people heal these things. And so the Red Door model is built on a community, and just like tribal, and feeling interconnected with others is really how we are in our best mental health, through that.
Indeed. Innovating recovery and life fulfillment. Can you expand this phrase to your website?
Well, I think that a lot of people think about recovery as abstinence, and we don't, right? That if abstinence is the final destination, then people are probably going to be pretty unfulfilled and in a lot of pain. What we see life fulfillment meaning, and what we use as a model of we call the 12 dimensions. And what the 12 dimensions is all the areas that are important to human beings. We all want healthy relationships. We want partners, lovers, friends, family, that we have really, wonderful, connected, joyful experiences with those people. And so how do we get there? And especially when substance abuse and other forms of mental health will actually isolate you or disconnect you from them. And so it's very important for us to actually support the person in their journey of creating better relationships. So that's one of the areas. The other area is about feeling purposeful and meaning in their life through work, what they're contributing, how they're showing up, how much money they're making, what types of work they're doing that is engaging and interesting to them. And so, what we don't want them to do when they come into treatment with us is we don't want them to actually be so disconnected that they lose their relationships or they lose, their careers or lose all their money. What we want to try to do is balance, the work that they're doing with their mental health or their substance use condition with all the things that they have going on in their life. And so we do that through providing peer support, which we call companions, people that actually can help sort of keep you connected more to life while you're actually with us in our program, which is very different than a lot of other programs, right? Who try to isolate you or disconnect you from the rest of the world. We feel that that can be too damaging. So what we want to do is actually keep you engaged to a certain point so that you feel like you're not losing it.
Again, very well said. Very well said. And as a founders of Red Door Live, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, I think that treatment's actually a very broken model. It evolved out of this idea that somehow we call it the car wash model. The That you can put somebody in on one end of the treatment center, like do an intervention, throw them into treatment, and somehow within these walls that we're going to fix the person, and then they're going to emerge clean and sober. Like, so we call it a car wash. Throw them in one end, clean them up, and get them out the other. But that's not really what recovery looks like. And so the whole model of care is really broken because there's a lot of money and time and sort of like a lot of services put in on the front end, of this car wash that doesn't turn to actually deliver the value to the person. So what we want to do is reinvent the model. That's what we're working on so that it doesn't cost as much, so that there are better outcomes, that there's more flexibility in the care so that people aren't isolated, but they're actually still engaged in their lives. And if we can reinvent that model, which we have, you know, are on the path to do, then we feel that we can actually make a significant contribution to this field and to make people's recovery more successful and less expensive.
Less expensive indeed. Miss Bernadine, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
So, my short term would just be to be able to connect, to have people connect with each other. Just simple, that the idea that recovery isn't like I'm going to be taken out of my life. It's about having a bigger life. So that's really what, I'd like to convey to people in the short term, like if they get anything. The longer term is I couldn't agree with Alex more that change the model of recovery because it's not working. And if you look at like the fentanyl overdose deaths, I mean, they've gotten a little lower because they're providing more Narcan, but they're just astronomical. And just the disease of loneliness and isolation that is perpetuated in the times we're living in right now. I'd really like to undo the aloneness of humanity.
Yes, definitely. Good luck to your
just
goals, both of
on a
you.
daily basis.
Yes, indeed. Hoping for more
Thank you.
and more and more empowering goals to come. And what would be your advice for those people out there want to be a sober right now? They're desperate to be a sober.
Mm.
Well, I think there's a lot more places in which to find support than there used to be. If you look at the 1940s, we had AA, right? And,
Yes.
it was a small little group and, it was very hard to find. Today, if you look at just that kind of idea of fellowship or support through non-professionals, there's 50 probably different kinds of programs that all support the different kinds of substance use that you might have. Like there's, you know, support for people who are doing methamphetamine or cocaine or alcohol or, you know, marijuana or like opiates. There's flavors of support for all the different substances. There's also flavors of support for families who are affected, or and and loved ones, kids, right? And so what you'll start to find is that there's an abundance of free support that's out there, secular, faith based, 12 step, non 12 step. And so the opportunity to connect with that kind of support, I think, would be the first recommendation that I would have.
Yeah, I would just say, just pick up the phone and tell someone. Just
Yes.
say that you're struggling, because sadly, like, rooted in addiction is shame, and the sense that I'm not okay to tell anyone because I'm going to be judged. So the first thing to do is to connect, just with wherever you feel safe. I mean, like, for example, like AA, they still have like a helpline. You don't even know who's on the other end of the phone. You could just be anonymous, which is the part about AA that I love, is the anonymous part of it, that you're allowed to just say what's real and what you're going through and not feel judged. So that's the first step.
Yes, people.
And then you go, it's connection.
Right. And if you want to call us, and have professionals, we'll answer the
Yes.
phone 24/7. You can text us. There's the phone number up in the right corner. Feel free
Yes.
to reach out to us. We're available. We'll help. And even if you don't come to us, it's still part of our mission. We're a nonprofit, and so what we're trying to do is actually get support out to as many people as possible.
Indeed, people, if you need help, please call 424-2427. They will help you for sure. And can you share your influence or recommended book that influenced your journey?
Wow, where do I start? Um, well, I like um, Pathways from the Culture of Addiction to the Culture of Recovery by William White, because he so beautifully talks about coming from, in recovery, like coming from a culture of addiction into a whole new way of life, just the way you hold power, the way that you interact, the way that you're able to be in your body differently. And so that happens to be, it's a little obscure, the reference, but I love his work. And The Myth of Normal, which is Gabor Mate's most recent book, is helpful. It's pretty
Right.
influential.
And I remember being turned on to In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost when that book was new, and it's a little older now. And one of the things that I appreciated about it was that it captured the essence of being an addict really, really well. And I think what Gabor Mate did at that with that book was sort of bring us into the awareness about the problems of substance abuse, the lives of people that were suffering behind it, and and it sort of dropped you off feeling like, okay, now I've been I experienced the problem, but where do we go from here? How do we find the transformative support that will bring us out of that and into healing? And I think that's where, like the Myth of Normal and other books have done, sort of carried that further along.
Yeah. There's one
Thank you.
other,
Yes.
Johan Hari, Chasing the Scream.
Chasing.
He talks a lot about connection being important in healing addiction.
Thank you so much for your recommendation, both of you, and hoping people will read it, empowered it, and they will learn from it. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book
Oh,
101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, and of course my food 101 in fifth season too, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in fourth season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101, as well as a fourth season too. Science 101 and Sex 101 in first season. And please do listen to them wherever
oh,
you listen your podcast. Mr. Alex and Miss Bernadine, beyond symptom reduction, what metrics or indicators do you find most meaningful for measuring genuine healing and recovery in this complex population?
Well, I think we have to go back to life fulfillment. I think too much focus is on abstinence, and you know, I think what people don't really get is that not everybody's an addict or an alcoholic, and I wish that we had some tests that we could give to somebody and say, well, look at your brain, you definitely are an addict, but we're not there yet. So what we really actually do is we, as the Red Door, walk alongside you to see if you're able to use substances recreationally, or if you actually are struggling with the consequences of using, in which we want to be there to support you in your recovery.
yeah. So I think that the first most fundamental thing is joy, is that people are able to experience their own sense of self, you know, um, being curious, trusting, connected, all the things that were so innately part of our humanity, and being able to reconnect with those things. Those are what I'm always on the lookout for in with any client I'm working with.
Mr. Alex and Miss Bernadine, thank you so much for sharing Red Door Life to the world. Hoping for more and more and more Red Door Life to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy as well as your business itself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
please
Please
reach out. We're here.
Yes.
You
join
know,
us. Absolutely.
right.
Yes, people, if you
And
need
maybe we
help.
give you a
Yes,
And thank
indeed.
you, Daniel,
well,
for
yes,
hosting us. I
yes.
really appreciate,
No
your
worries.
support and support out there.
No worries at all. People, if you need help, please call 424-242-27. For sure, they will help you to the fullest. And I hope one day, Mr. Alex and Miss Bernadine, you will write a book regarding of what we're talking about. And let's empower people all over the world through your writing. So, Mr. Alex and Miss Bernadine, thank you so much for your time.
Uh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Take good care. Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.